Okay. Okay. So cool. So just give me 1 or 2 minutes. We will start the session. Okay. Just in 1 or 2 minutes, we are going to start. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for your confirmation. Just wait for 1 minute. We are going to start the session. Yeah. Hi. So let's start this session. Okay. So good evening. Let me delete it. Okay. So let's take. Okay. So yesterday, what we did, what we completed. So we completed almost the topic about the setter injection. So we completed the concepts like how you are injecting the map object values as well as how we are injecting the dependency of other objects into another objects. So that is what we completed in yesterday's class. Okay, so just see what we done in yesterday. Yeah. Okay, so this is what we done in yesterday. Okay. Yeah. So yesterday we created address class as well as we created student class, and student class is required. Student class requires internally address object. So what we did further to inject one object into another object, okay, as part of the setter injection, okay, Spring provided an attribute called as ref attribute inside the property tag. So inside the property tag, we are going to use the ref attribute. So as part of the ref attribute, what we are passing, we are going to pass the address of the address object. So whatever the address object you want, for example, assume like you have address 1 and address 2. So maybe the person belongs to the, for example, based on the student information or based on the student thing. Okay, so you are injecting that object inside the student object level. So this is what we completed yesterday. So this is what how the things will happening internally whenever your program is executed, whenever you are executing, whenever you are creating the bean factory object, or whenever you are creating the Spring IOC container object. So what is happening internally and all we discussed in yesterday. First it will create all individual objects and then it will find out where those objects should be injected. So these are all things taken care by the Spring framework internally. Okay, so they will internally written a lot of logic to handle all these scenarios, to handle all this logic. Okay, they internally they are written all this logic, reading the XML file, creating objects, okay, and injecting the dependency objects into another objects level. So all these activities are taken care by the Spring framework internal. So what is happening internally and all we just discussed yesterday, and we tested the changes whatever we completed. Okay, the changes whatever we completed yesterday we tested with respect to our applications. So yeah, let me open the class. Yeah. So see here, yesterday we just got the student objects, but internally every student object is injected with the address objects. So this is what about the dependency injection generally. So in our real-time projects are real-time point of view. So most of the times anyway we are going to create multiple Java classes, as well as we are going to use multiple Java classes from the third-party frameworks, other frameworks and all. So that means the object creation part, most of the time, we are going to hand over to the Spring framework instead of we are writing logic for object creation. Okay, so and at the same time, whenever objects are having dependency, one object is having dependency into another objects. So what we are going to do, we are not going to create, we are not going to write down logic manually to create objects and injecting. What we are going to do, we are going to configure with the Spring framework. We are going to configure with the Spring framework, and wherever you have a dependency. Now, this student object having a dependency of another object. So how can I say that? Because of this ref attribute. If I don't have this property, if I don't have this property, then I cannot say like, okay, this student object is having dependency of other object. No, it is just having only primitive values. It is not depending on any another object. But if I open here, if I just have, by seeing this, I'm saying like, okay, student is having dependency of an object, dependency of other object because of the ref attribute. So ref is referring about the reference of the object. So you are giving bean id here. So this is what we completed yesterday. Okay, so let's come back. Let's start with the constructor injection. Now we are going to start with the topic called as constructor injection. So we discussed in earlier. So we have two types of dependency injection majorly. One is setter injection and second one is constructor injection. So Spring supporting two types of injections in XML format level. So majorly like setter injection as well as constructor injection. So as part of setter injection, okay, so this is what we earlier taken the example. Setter injection, we completed the discussion about the setter injection. So generally, basically, whenever we are writing a class, we based on our core Java and advanced Java knowledge, we know that, okay, what are the values, maybe what are the properties you need in a class level. Maybe you will have primitive data types, okay, maybe you will have primitive data types or string data type or collection objects, nothing like collection object like list, set and hash map. Okay, these might be the options. Okay, collection objects, and maybe you are going to use other class objects or predefined class objects inside a class. So a class may contain primitive data types, string data type, or collection objects or other class objects as a data type. So apart from this, are we going to have anything in the Java level, Java language level? No. So these are the four things we are going to use always in any of the Java programs. So we learned how to inject the primitives, how to inject the string data type. We learned how to inject collection objects as part of a class, how to inject collection of values, something like list data type, set data type, map data type. And after that, we started injecting the other class objects. That is what we completed in yesterday's class. So what is a setter injection? Now let's revise the setter injection so that it will be easy for you to understand the constructor injection. Okay, if you are good with the setter injection understanding, then you can easily understand the constructor injection. Yesterday itself I told you like, okay, yesterday itself I told you like, yeah. So yesterday itself I told you like, and previous class video, please give new links, or when we will get the Google Classroom link and materials. I will talk about the material and everything in the last of the class. Okay, just leave it. I will give you all the details and everything. Okay, let's come back. So when it comes to the setter injection, we discussed two statements. So generally, internally, Spring framework, what Spring framework will do, even we take a lot of examples. Whenever Spring created object, initially it is going to create empty object. Initially it is going to create, empty object in the sense, it is Spring creating object with the default values of the properties, So after that, once object is created, then internally Spring is going to call based on your property configuration, how many properties you configured, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. So it will come back one by one property and it will call all setter methods for every property. For every property, it is going to call the setter method. So that is what the statement I given here. If you observe here, so IOC, that means Spring creating object for our bean class with the default values of instance variables. So once object is created, that means after object creation, Spring calling setter methods of that class, setter methods of that class, and injecting whatever the properties we configured based on the properties. That means, for example, I configured 3 properties here. So how many setter methods will be called? 3 setter methods will be called on top of production details class. Set product name, set price, set product ID, and those values will be passed to the setter method. So that means now in the by the time of completing second step, your object contains whatever the configured values you given. So those values are contained by the instance variables. So the values whatever you passed, those are contained by the instance variables. So see here, this is what city, Hyderabad, state, TS, country, India, pin code and all. So these are all happened because of the setter injection. Now when it comes to the constructor injection, configuration point of view, most of the things are same. Whatever we completed for last 4 types of data, something like primitive data types, string collection objects, as well as other class dependencies and everything. Okay, so concept wise same, configuration wise you will see more similar to setter injection. So what is next concept? Constructor injection. Okay, constructor injection. So with respect to our Java, first we need to understand what is a constructor. Something Spring is going to make sure Spring is going to do with the constructor operation. Something Spring is going to do something with the constructor. So with respect to our Java point of view, what is a constructor? It is a block which will be executed generally in the general statement I am taking, which will be executed after object creation or while object creation. Generally when constructor will be executed? Yes, while object creation. That means parallelly, immediately. So while object creation. So not after the object creation. Yes, yeah. So a block will be executed while object creation. So whatever the constructor you define, parameterized constructor or default constructor, and whenever you are calling, whenever you are creating object with object, whenever you are creating the object with a number of parameters or number of arguments, then that respective constructor will be executed. So this is what we learned as part of the core Java. So it is a block of code. Or logic which will be executed while object creation. So generally, mainly we will use constructors to initialize, okay, to initialize default values, default values to variables. Which variables generally we will mostly in our programming, mostly we will use only instance variables. Okay, so generally why we will use that advantage of the constructor is generally why we will use constructor in our Java language point of view. Okay, so to initialize default values to the instance variables. So that means, for example, assume like you written a class public class something student. Okay, so you are going to writing class like this and assume like string college name, string student name. Okay, college name, student name, like this you return. So how you are going to write down the constructor generally? So you are going to write down a constructor by using access specifier. You will use something public and all. You are going to write down with class name, and you are going to write down like college name equal to something ABC college. So you are initializing the properties. basically generally to initialize the default values, to initialize some values to the variables, we will write down the constructors generally. You can write down any logic, but most of the times to initialize the values, we will write down constructor. Whenever object is created, if you want to pass values to the variables, then you are going to call the constructor. You are going to implement the constructor. So something I'm going to write down delete. Or you may write down for the same class, you may write down another constructor, something like, can I write down like this? String college name. Okay, this dot, you know all these things. This dot, what is it, this and everything. With respect to Pojo class, I am writing this syntax. Okay, so what I did here, it is a default constructor. That means zero parameterized constructor. It is a one parameter constructor. You may write down two parameter constructor also, all arguments constructor or whatever it is. So something I'm going to write down string s name. S name. Okay, so you are going to write down s name. So maybe you are going to write down logic like this. This dot s name equal to s name. Okay, so understand it is all about just core Java. We are just discussing a little bit about the constructor point of view, what is happening exactly in the constructor, so that we can use the same topic discussion in the Spring point of view. Okay, so this is how we are going to write down constructors in our classes. We can write down any number of constructors inside our class, maybe 0 parameters, 1 parameter, 2 parameter, you want maybe 3 parameter constructor. You can write down any constructors with any number of parameters and all, whatever you want. And inside that, you will write down the logics, you will assign the values, or you will write down some logic internally in the constructor level. So generally what will happen when constructor will be executed, for example, you created object like this, student s equal to new student. So in this case, what will happen, which constructor will be executed? So this is what the constructor executed, because you are calling default constructor zero parameterized constructor. So this is a zero parameterized constructor. This will be executed. So that means by the time college name equal to ABC, the student name is Dilip. For example, you created object like this, student. So something you given value like this, something ABC college or XYZ college, you given. So in this scenario, which constructor will be called by our JVM, or whenever we are executing our program, whenever you are creating object, this object, so which constructor will be called? One parameter constructor, single parameter constructor. So that means you define one parameter constructor, so this will be executed. Now similarly, if you create an object like this, something college name comma, you given another string value Dilip. So what will happen, whenever you are calling this, so this constructor will be executed. So whenever this object is going to be created internally, so this constructor will be executed by our JVM or Java, whatever it is, right? So this is what basic things this is what happening in our Java level whenever you are using constructor topic. Okay, yes, good. So thanks. Yeah, just good for your response. Subchange 899 name to its name. Okay. Okay, so I'm just taking a high level coding here, just to we are revising the Java knowledge, that's all. Okay, the proper spelling mistakes, coding and all we will take in Eclipse. Just I'm revising the things, that's all. Okay, what is happening in the constructor and all. Cool. Now we are written all the logic for the, so we know how a constructor we are going to write down, how many constructor we are going to write down, when a constructor will be executed. So we know all the functionalities. Now let's talk about the constructor injection with respect to Spring framework. With respect to Spring framework, what is the meaning of a constructor injection and all, we will try to understand now. So what we are going to discuss now, constructor injection. With respect to Spring framework, constructor injection, CI. Okay, so maybe just like a shortcut, I can use that in future. So what we are going to discuss, it's all about the constructor injection. So what is the meaning of constructor is, based on, okay, based on beans configuration. So what is the meaning of beans configuration? Here I used a word called as beans configuration. That means you are going to write down a class, you are going to write a class and you are going to configure inside the XML file. So that is called as beans configuration. Okay, that is what called as beans configuration. Okay, so with respect to beans configuration, okay, whenever, so if you are using a tag called as constructor argument. What is the tag name? Constructor hyphen arg is the tag name. So the constructor injection will be achieved by using a tag called as constructor argument. So that means in our property tag level, we are going to use the constructor argument, and similarly we will pass property name. Okay, so that is what same thing. It is almost similar to the setter injection configuration pointer. Okay, you are going to pass value here, value. So property name you are going to do variable name, value, what is the value you are going to inject. So what is the child tag we are using as part of the bean tag? Whenever you are configuring a bean, okay, for a class, whenever we are writing bean configuration, so we are going to use the constructor argument. The constructor argument is the child tag for the bean tag. So whenever Spring gone through this level of configuration, whenever Spring gone through the constructor argument tag, then Spring will understand internally, then Spring framework is going to, Spring will understand internally like, okay, I need to do constructor injection. So, okay, I need to do constructor injection. So immediately what it will do, okay, the steps will happen like this. Okay, Spring will understand like, okay, these guys are expecting constructor injection. These guys are passing values to the constructor. The meaning of this tag is passing values to constructor parameters. Passing values to constructor parameters. Passing values to the constructor parameters. So that means in our class level, we should define the constructor as well. Okay, in previous classes, whenever we are not written any constructors. So that is why we gone through the option called as setter injection. Now let's take a separate project for the constructor injection. I will create a new project, Java project. Okay, so something like constructor injection or whatever it is, dependency injection I can take or whatever it is. Okay, so I'll leave it the package name. So I'm using Java 17. Cool. Next, finish. So I'm just created a Java project. Let me close all these classes. Save it. If you have any changes, let's leave it. So let me delete old project. Okay, so very almost it is similar to setter only. Setter is happening after object creation. The dependency injection happening after object creation. But when it comes to constructor, the injection you are injecting the values to the constructor. That means whenever object is created. So that means the constructor injection is all about dependency injection happens when while, okay, while object creation with constructor execution. That means Spring what it will do, whatever the configuration you given here for the name and values, whatever the configuration you did for the properties, those properties will be passed to the constructor parameters. That means when constructor will be executed, generally a constructor will be executed based on Java when object is created, while object creation. So that means Spring what it is going to do, Spring will inject all the configuration values when object is creating. While object creation, Spring will inject all the values. But if it is a setter injection, Spring initially creates the object with the default values of the properties. After that, in the second step, based on your configuration, it will call the setter methods and then it will inject the values. But when it comes to constructor injection, Spring will inject the values while object creation. That means the Spring will inject values to the constructor parameters. So definitely Spring passing values to the constructor parameters. So that we should write down constructors. So let's take the project. So what you have to do, next step, configure the build path with all 5 jar files, whatever you want. Okay, so these are the 5 jar files I want to support the core module. Apply and close. Yes, right? So expand it. You can see something like reference libraries. If you are seeing these files, same 5 jar files here, then that means your project is set up build path to the Spring core module. Okay, good. Now let's write down a class. First, let me write down a simple class. Okay, let me take product. A class name called as product. I'm going to write down a package also. Okay, so say empty package, something like com dot delete or whatever it is, something. I just taken a package. Okay, so let's create this package. So I created a package called as com.delete, and inside this, or you can take something like Amazon, it's better instead of delete. Okay, so I renamed the package name, move product to the package. Let me delete. Okay, so I created a package called as com.js Amazon, and inside that I'm going to write down a class called as product class. So here let's take some properties, 2-3 properties. String. I'm going to take something like product ID, string, product name, or you can take it as an integer. Good, so that we can cover multiple data types. And product ID, product name, price. So you can take double price. Okay, so see here. Now I'm going to write down setter getters first. I'm going to write down the setter getter methods first. As a Pojo class point of view, setter getter methods you have to write down. Okay, written. Now guess. Okay, now guess. Can I achieve constructor injection with this class? As per our discussion from last 10 minutes, can we achieve constructor injection with this class? Whatever the class I designed, whatever the class I created, with this, can I achieve constructor injection? No. Good. So that means it is having only default constructor. So that means zero parameterizer constructor. Then how you will pass values to the variables? How you are going to pass? When you are able to create object like this, maybe you are going to allow creating object like this. Product p equal to new product, generally with respect to core Java pointer, right? So whenever you are creating, you may create object like this. That means the meaning of it is object will be created with default values of variables. So that means what will happen in memory level? What will happen? So let's take a new diagram. You can understand again. New, don't save. So what will happen in the memory level? Your product object will be created with default value, something like PID equal to 0, PName equal to null, and P price equal to 0.0. So this is how your object will be created, because you don't have any parameterizer constructor. You are not written any parameterizer constructor. So you are having only one possibility how to create object is, this is what the possibility. So that means you are not able to inject values for the PID, PName, price order. So that means if you want to inject those values, what you have to do, you you have to create the constructor. If you don't want to create the constructor, then what is the option you have to inject the values? If you don't want to provide constructor, parameterized constructor, then what is the option you have to inject the values? Yes, setter injection. Then you have to go for the setter injection. That's all. Okay, so if I am writing the constructor, now see here, run as, so not run, source, I'm taking help from the Eclipse, constructor using fields. Okay, so what is this constructor? All parameterized constructor. So three values, three parameters, three variables, three parameters I taken, and I am injecting the values. Now guess, with this logic, with your class, you can create object like this, right? Now you are going to create object. Is it possible to create object like this for this product class now? Okay, let me expand it. Okay, now is it possible to create object like this? Any guess? Core Java knowledge? No. Yes, no is the correct answer. Because whenever you are not created anything, any constructor, then default will be taken with zero parameterized and all. You can create empty object. But whenever you define at least one constructor, then JVM will not add any default constructor with zero parameters. It's mandatory. You have to create object like this. You have to create object always, something passing value 1 comma. So you take product ID something, right? So something value P1 or whatever it is, comma some price. So you need to pass value like this. So three values you have to pass. Three values you have to pass. Then only you can do that. Now see here, I am writing one more constructor. I can write down any number of constructors as per the Java language. So see here, I am writing one more constructor. I am writing one more constructor. So with this, yes, you can create object like this also. You can create object like this also. So whenever you are creating object in this way, this will be executed. Whenever you are creating object in this way, this will be created. So now let's see here. I'm just deleting the default one, and let's come back to the configuration point. So now my class contains setter getter methods, as well as my class contains all parameterized constructor. All parameterized constructor. So see how I am going to configure, how I am going to inject values into the product ID. Okay, so product ID.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Product ID. Okay, no problem.
Allahu Akbar.
Product ID. Product ID good. Okay, so product I just corrected the spelling mistake, like correct here also. Yeah, good. So you created all setter getter method as well as a 3 parameterized constructor, all parameterized constructor. Now let's create an XML file in our project. Because we are doing the XML configuration, we are going to write down a new XML file. New file, and I'm going to give something. You can give any file name. Okay, generally we will give something like beans.xml because we are configuring all beans. Finish it. So the XML schema and all, you can copy paste from the official website, or you can copy paste from the previous examples wherever you have. Okay, so here I am taking content from here and I am pasting in my XML file, and it should have a ending tag beans. Okay. So it's a Vamsi, right? So it's a Java knowledge. I mean, it's a core Java knowledge. Why you are calling this super and all? So just refer in the Google, you will get it the answer. Okay. So I can explain, but it will be like a core Java topic, and it will take a lot of time, and it will be leaded to some other discussion. Okay, let's come back. Now, how we are going to create the object? I mean, how we are going to create the bean? To create the bean, same thing. You are going to take same approach. Okay, only thing is internally the child tags will change. in between setter injection versus constructor injection. Now I'm going to write down id equal to something product or p1 or whatever it is. I given a one p1 values or something like I take iPhone or something. Okay, let's take iPhone as a product ID. Now what is the second attribute? Class. Class equal to fully qualified class name. That means you have to give the class name along with the package name. Along with the package name, you have to give it. So close this XML. Yeah, I have only project related one. So com.amazon dot, my class name is product. Okay, so with this what will happen? Spring will create the object. Spring will create the object. So let's try to write down a main application, new class. We are not configured either setter, we are not configured either getter injection. We are simply we are trying to create empty object and we are trying to test it. Spring app, something, finish, main method I taken. Yes, I'm going to create Bean Factory. Complete practically I'm explaining you. Okay, so new file system XML application context. You are going to give the XML file path here. Yes, so what is my XML file path? You can go to the right click properties, you will get the entire file path from here. Cancel it and go to again main application. So inside double quotes you have to give the XML file path. Okay, so now you configured a bean called as product with bean ID iPhone. Okay, when you go to the product class, you have only 3 parameterized constructor, you don't have any default constructor. So try to get the object created by the Spring framework. So what is the object? Product object you want. Product object you want PRO something, whatever it is, P1 equal to factory dot get bean, and what is the name I given? Bean ID name iPhone I given. So let me copy paste. So these are all you know that. Okay, we completed multiple examples. Okay, yes, semicolon, and it is going to return object type. We need to typecast it to the product level. Now see, sys out of, just print the P1, sorry, P1, whatever the variable you have, object variable, fine, reference name you taken and print it. So execute your program. We are not yet implemented any constructor injection. Okay, just try to understand here. Error creating with the bean name called as iPhone defined in the nested exception is bean instantiation failed to instantiate. So any guesses why it is unable to create the bean object? Any guesses? No, iPhone is not like that. Yes. So the reason it is, okay, we are not, so intentionally I want to show this error. Okay, the reason is, just understand, go to the class, product class, you have 3 parameterized constructor. So generally, can you create object like this? Okay, let me write down here itself. Product p equal to new product. New product. So let me write down product like this. Why you are getting compile time error here? Why we are getting compile time error here? Because you are not written a 0 parameterized constructor, you written only 3 parameterized constructor. So that means the mandatorily you have to pass 3 values, then only you will be allowed to create object. See, now the compile time error is gone, because earlier you got the compile time error as per your class implementation. As per your class implementation, you don't have any default constructor. You have only 3 parameterized constructor. So that is why whenever you are passing 3 values, compiler is, I mean, you are not getting any compile time errors, and JVM will create object for this. But JVM will not create object for this, and you are getting compile time error, like there is no constructor with 0 parameters and all. So that means in our bean, but when it comes to, if you observe in the setter injection level, whenever you are not written any constructor, you can create object with the empty bean also. That means without passing any values, right? For example, even let's make it in this way. So let me comment it out. Now tell me this program is going to create, sorry. So now tell me, whenever if I am going to execute Spring main application, is it going to create product object or not? Yes, good. Because yes, you don't have any constructor. That means internally JVM is feeling like JVM will add default constructor. So whenever Spring trying to create object, you're not passing any values, either setter or constructor inside the bean. Simply you're asking to the Spring framework, hey Spring, I want object. That's all. You're not trying to inject any values, no injection, no dependency injection, simply object creation. So Spring will create the object. So let's test it. Run as Java application. Okay, see, now Spring is able to create the object. Okay, so let's come back to the constructor. So that means to inject the values with respect to constructor injection, we have to define the constructors. That is what I would like to say here. So if you are not defining the constructor injection, then you have to go for the setter injection. So which is a better injection and all we will discuss after completion of the constructor injection. Okay, setter versus constructor we will discuss after completing the constructor injection. Okay, so give me a second. Okay, development completed. Yeah, just a second. I'm just okay. Good. Thanks. So now I written a constructor. Let's come back to the configuration. If it is a constructor injection, we want to inject the values via constructor. Then what is the tag name? Constructor hyphen arg is the arg is the tag name. Okay, constructor arg is the tag name you have to use. But if it is a setter injection, what is the tag you used? Property tag. So that means now Spring is understanding like, okay, these guys are going to do the constructor injection because we are defining all constructor arguments. So how many constructor arguments you have for product class? 3 parameters. 1, 2, 3. So that means how many tags you required inside this? 3 constructor arguments, because you are going to inject 3 values via constructor arguments. So that's why they given the tag name as a constructor argument. So what is the property name? Name. What is the variable name you are going to inject? You can take index also. Let's do one thing. So the meaning of it is they are expecting in the index point of view. So what will happen? So come back to the product class. So what is the first index? So Spring is giving a chance. I mean, Spring is giving an option like, instead of giving names and all, Spring is asking us like, please define first value as a first constructor argument. So that means whatever I am defining inside this constructor argument value, that will be comes to the first parameter or first argument of the constructor. So that means product ID. Whatever the second constructor argument tag you given value, that will comes to the product name level. So that is what Spring is expecting here. But if it is a setter injection, okay, just open it. You can write down order in any order. You can take something like variable name versus value. But when it comes to the constructor injection, if you see here, generally what are the attributes available inside a tag is XML tag. You can keep cursor here and you can press on the control space. So they see here, the constructor argument is supporting three attributes. One is index, second one is reference, third one is type. So we will see what and all one by one. Okay. What and all one by one, we will see it. Okay. So by default, I no need to give any index, any order and all. So let's see here, product ID is assume like 1001 or okay, whatever it is, 1001 is the product ID. And second constructor argument, okay, I will take it as a diagram also, don't worry. So what is the second constructor argument? Product name. So that means you have to pass product name here. So for example, my product name is iPhone, and what is the third parameter? Price. So that means in the third constructor argument, you have to give a value equal to, so the price, whatever the price you want to give it, you can give it. So now tell me what will happen whenever you this configuration completed. Let's guess, let's analyze what is going to happen internally. Okay. So take configuration, bean configuration. Now what will happen whenever you are executing the main application, whenever this line is executed, the line number 10, what is happening internally and all, we are going to discuss. Okay, so we discussed similarly for the setter injection also. Now we are doing same for the constructor injection. So what will happen whenever this line is executed? Spring will open the beans.xml file. Spring started. Spring is going to start scanning one by one bean ID. So it will come to the first bean, and yes, in the memory level, in the Spring IOC container memory level, so it is going to create the object. See here, the difference between the setter and constructor. This is how you need to explain in interviews also. They will expect you practically. You should tell them very clearly with respect to setter injection, when object is creating, what happening, with respect to constructor injection, what is happening and all. We need to answer very carefully. Okay. So what will happen when Spring started reading your bean configuration? Spring is going to create the object for the class called as product. So Spring is going to create for the class called as product, but Spring will observe, okay, we are doing the constructor injection, that to 3 parameter constructor arguments. 3 constructor arguments we given. So immediately what Spring will do, before, see here, before creating object, understand it, before creating object, Spring will identify, okay, Spring framework will identify 3 params constructor. 3 params constructor. Why 3 params constructor? Because you given 3 constructor arguments, so that is why Spring is going to identify 3 parameterizer constructor in the class level. Yes, if you go to the class, you have 3 parameterizer constructor, then that means, so Spring is going to pass values. Internally Spring will do all these things. Okay. Now what Spring is going to do? Spring is going to pass values to this constructor like this. So internally Spring is going to write down code like product, iPhone. Internally this code will happen, and followed by the product ID. What is the ID given? 1001. 1001, and followed by the second parameter you given iPhone. Okay, the name, phone name, and the third parameter you given double value 1,30,000 you given, right? So what Spring internally doing? Spring is going to write down internally this kind of logic. Spring is internally writing this kind of logic. That means Spring passing values. First constructor argument comes to the first position. Second argument constructor comes to the second position. Third argument comes to the third position. Okay, so this is how the values will be injected to the constructor level. Now, with this syntax, you can able to create the object or not for our product class. With this line, you can able to create object or not. Yes. Okay, so yeah, this with this we can create the object. That means internally Spring is going to create object. That means whenever object is created, immediately all instance variables are assigning with the default value, assigning with the values whatever you configured, whatever the values you configured in the constructor argument based on your class implementation. Okay, based on your constructor implementation. So product ID storing inside the product ID of instance variable. So that means inside the product ID, what is the value now? Product ID equal to 1001. Now, what is the second value? Yeah, second value is product name. Product name equal to, what is the second argument you given? Constructor argument iPhone. But when all these things are happening, when object is creating, while object creation, all these things are happening. Here there is no chance of writing. I mean, there is no point like object created with default values of instance variable. There is no point because we are doing constructor argument. That means object created with injected values, not default values, with injected values. So in setter injection, object will be created with default values of the instance variable. In the next step, Spring will call setter methods on top of the object by passing injected values. But it is constructor injection while object creating, Spring injecting the values directly to the instance variables. Now the third is price equal to 1 lakh something 30,000. So this is how the object will be created inside the memory level. This is how the object will be created inside the memory level. And what is the bean ID you given? iPhone. The bean ID is iPhone. The object name is iPhone you given. So in the memory, product object is ready with three values, with three values. That means with three instance variable values with the bean ID called as iPhone. With the bean ID called as iPhone. Now tell me, with this configuration, with the beans.xml configuration, the Spring is going to create object or not? Yes, your class contains three parameter constructor. Even you are configured three values for three constructor, so for three parameters. You created three constructor argument tags as part of single bean, and your class is having three parameters. So is it going to create object or not? Yes. So same thing. This is what happening internally. So this is how the first value will be passed to the first parameter, second value, second parameter, third parameter. Internally, your object is created by the Spring framework. Now try to get your product object. Now see, now you will not get any exception because you configured very properly. Run as Java application. See, now your object is created. Now your object is created. But in earlier case, when you are not configured, see now I commented out. That means resume like deleted. Now your program is going to be created. Spring is going to create object. No, you will get a exception like, okay, you are not passed the proper parameters and all based on the constructor you implemented. So that's why you got. Now, yes, I passed three parameters to the three parameterized constructor. So Spring will inject those values and Spring will create object. Say Spring is creating. So if you want to see the values, sys out. Okay, only the difference between setter and injection, what is happened, we will discuss. We will get price. You are able to see one value, so that means all values are injected. Get product ID. So even you can see the product name. Get product name. Okay, so execute your program. All three values what you configured, 1,30,000, 1,001 iPhone value you configured, those values are injected into product object by using constructor injection. This is what you written constructor injection. Okay. So now what is the difference between setter and constructor with respect to coding point of view? Okay, advantages and all we will discuss later. Coding point of view, what are the observations you observed? Whenever you return a POJO class, there is no dependency of constructor. You don't need to write down any constructor. Maybe internally you will write down. Internally, now tell me, this class is eligible for the setter injection or not? This class is eligible for the setter injection or not? Not. Mahesh, yes, good. Yes, good. Because why? Setter injection will happen when you have a default constructor. So that means, as per the setter injection, first it will create the object, then it will call the methods. But here, if you are trying to write down the properties, no, your object will not be created. Try that experiment. Okay. Now, second point. If I created like this, now tell me, is this class eligible? Is this class eligible for the setter injection or not? Yes, yes, yes is the good answer. Because now what will happen whenever you return setter injection? Okay, see if you want. Okay, so just I am discussing practically. You are going to take property. Okay, name equal to something. What is the you taken product ID? So let me inject only one value. I will not inject more. And you are going to take something like iPhone 2. Okay, here the end tag is product value equal to something. I given something 2 lakhs or whatever it is. Okay, so end tag. You can end with these things also. So now what you did, you created one bean with the constructor injection, one bean with the, for the same class you created setter injection. So it is going to inject product ID as a 2 lakhs and price and phone name will be null and 00 product ID, right? So product ID you can take like 1002. So that means price will be 0.0. Product name is null, you will see, because you are not injected, you are injecting only one property. So try to get it now from our main application. See, I am giving you much more practical knowledge. Okay, all internal details. Please try to get the knowledge. If you are able to explain these things in the interview, so that's all. There is a probability of getting selection. Okay, because we are completely understanding coding point of view, not theoretical point of view. Okay, P2, and you are going to pass iPhone 2 here. So iPhone 2 bean object is going to create based on the setter injection. iPhone bean ID is created based on the constructor injection. See here, your object is able to create or not, run as Java. See, your object is created. That means you can get the value also. So what is the value we injected? Product ID, right? So let's copy paste, rename the P2 to P1 to P. So see here now, run as Java application. See, it is injected 102. But if you are not returning this, okay, let me delete it. Now guess. Now execute your program. Run as Java. You got an example. Because there is no default constructor is available. So with this, what we understood? If no default constructor implemented, that means we are not written logic. If no default constructor implemented, and if we are implemented parameterized constructor, params constructor, okay, params constructor, whether it is a single parameter or two parameter, whatever it is, constructor, okay. If no default constructor implemented, and if we implemented, and if you implemented params constructor, then what is the possibilities injection? Is it only setter injection, or only constructor injection, or what is the answer? Both is wrong. Yes, constructor injection is the right answer. See, right now I given answer. After giving the answer, I asked you a question. Okay. So after giving this solution, after showing all practically, I asked this question. Okay. So as part of the product, I deleted the default constructor. That means I did not return any default constructor. I did not implemented any default constructor, but I implemented parameterized constructor. Then I can do only constructor injection. Now if I change this question in such a way like, okay, if default constructor implemented and as well as implemented parameterized constructor. So with this, what you can do? So in this scenario, what type of injection you can do? Yes, both. So if you want, you can do for the setter injection, you can go for the constructor injection, right? So you can go for the setter, you can go for the constructor injection. So that is why whenever we are writing the POJO classes, in real-time projects, okay, in real-time projects, whenever we are writing the POJO classes, it's better to write down always a parameterized constructors as well as a default constructor, so that your class is eligible for the setter injection as well as getter injection. Maybe you don't have any logic, but write down a default constructor also. You can write down a default constructor also. You can take help from the Eclipse also. Source constructor from the superclass, that means empty constructor. See here, you are writing default constructor. So it's better to write down default constructor as well as parameterized constructor. So in this scenario, if you want to do constructor injection, yes, you can go for the constructor injection. If you want to do setter injection, yes, you can go for the setter injection. Okay, so that's why please make sure whenever you are writing POJO classes, writing parameters, even default constructor, so that your class will support both the injection. Okay, can we write property? No, at a time. So it's a invalid question. So the question is, can we write down property in one place? Property and constructor in the same place, in the same bean configuration. That means, so here, yeah, come back XML. So the question here it is, can I inject like this? No, it's not. It's not like half you can give setter, half you can give constructor as part of single object creation. No, because see, apply your common sense. The meaning of it is when object created. Okay, see, that is what. So what I told here, I clearly told you, constructor general will be executed while object created, right? So yeah, dependency injection happen while object creation. So then while object creation, how can you call the setter method? Property belongs to the setter method. While object creation, without object creation, are you able to call the setter method? After creation only you can setter method. So that's why you cannot do same both the things at one place. Whether you have to go for the constructor for one bean implementation, see one object you choose in setter injection. For one object you choose in constructor injection for the same class. It's up to your choice whether what you are going under. What is a better injection and all, we will try to discuss later. Okay. So with this, we are done with the basic. Now basic constructor injection. Okay, basic constructor injection. Now let's do here. Okay, I want to inject some different primitive data types under. So what you are going to do, something, let's take Boolean, or I can take Boolean instead of Boolean. Okay, we are already covered 2, 3. So you can practice with other things also. Something what I can take, integer, short, long, byte type. Okay, so something, okay, you can take something Boolean, you can try with other. Okay, it's just like similar to setter injection only. Okay, is expired. Maybe the product is expired or whatever it is, warranty expired or something like that. The meaning it is Boolean. Okay, so I'm going to write down setter method for this. Okay, it's better to delete constructor parameter. I'm going to write down freshly. So generate getter setter for the is. So here you have a problem. Get Get is not a problem for the setter injection. You have to write down get is expired. Okay, so I fixed this problem, and it's better to write down all parameterized constructor. I already have 0 parameterized constructor, and I'm going to write down, because I added new property, so that's why I'm going to create again new constructor with 4 parameters. Okay, that's why I deleted existing one. Okay, now the question here it is, okay, I will ask one more question. For example, I created 2 parameterized constructor. Okay, what I did? 2 parameterized constructor. So where it is, where it created? Okay, it created here. Let's make it in a proper one. Okay, so how many constructor I created? 2 constructor. One is default constructor, one is parameterized. But how many parameters you have? 2 parameters. Now tell me, in this scenario, this is going to be executed? No. No is the correct answer, because your constructor accepting only 2 values, but you given 3 values. How it will be? Where should I keep the third value? In which place I have to replace? No, right? So that's why, if you want to go for the 3, so let's do one thing. You can write down any constructor. Based which constructor you want to execute, based on that you have to do the bean configuration. Constructor using 4 parameters. Constructor using 4 parameters. Now, this is going to be, whenever you want to execute only 2, you want to inject only product ID and product name, then what is the better option? This is the better option. So, product ID and product name. So, now tell me, based on this bean configuration, which constructor will be executed? 2 parameterized constructor. You given 1001 iPhone, so 2 parameters you configure, 2 constructor arguments. So Spring will execute these things. Okay, so see, now Spring is able to create object or not. Run as Java application. See, Spring is able to create product object with iPhone, and you injected only product ID and price. So that's why you can see, let's do one thing. This is all, let me separate this out of. Need to something like this. Delete the first line. Okay, so execute your program. Now what happening? Yes, your first constructor is executed, but you injected only product ID and product name. You are not injected the price, as well as you are not injected the expired or not. Is expired. Okay, so run as Java application. See, false, default value is false, default value is 00, but you injected 1001 and I. For example, can I write down one more constructor injection for all parameters? For 4 parameter constructor, yes, you have to write down 1, 3, 4. Okay, it came actually when I did Control Shift F, everything came in 2 lines. I can keep in a short format. Okay, so now what I'm trying to do, first parameter, second parameter, third parameter, fourth parameter. Observe the first parameter, product ID, product name, price, and last value is false, Boolean value. So come back here. Yes, I'm going to write down 1003, and it is iPhone 15 version. Product name. Okay, what is the product name? Is iPhone 15, price, and is expired. So I'm going to write down price is all about 2 lakhs, and is it expired? No. So no means true. So sorry, false. Is expired or false or true? It's not expired means false. Okay. So now what will happen with this? Yes. Okay. Here you have to given a different bean ID. I already told you, you can create any number of bean configurations, but you have to give unique bean ID. Here I given iPhone. Here I given iPhone 15. Here I given iPhone 2 and all. So now, based on this configuration, which constructor will be executed? This constructor will be executed. See, iPhone 15, right? So I'm reusing this existing logic itself to save time. iPhone 15, copy paste. Yes, iPhone 15. Now tell me, what is the product ID you will get? Whatever you configured, something like 100. Run as Java application. See 1003, you can get it. So is it clear how the constructor injection is happening with respect to primitives and string data type? Good. Yes, yeah. So now let's come back. For example, the product contains, okay. For example, the product contains, okay. So let's do one thing, and again, I'm deleting the constructors. Okay, so we are all talking about the constructor now. I deleted all constructor because I'm going to add a new thing. Okay, so assume like list of, okay, import from the util package list. I'm going to take some string values. So what can I take? Some list of, or I can take something like products. My property name is products. Okay, so let's do one thing. I'm deleting all setter getters also. I will create freshly. Okay, now my class contains 5 properties. Even I included list. Now how I am going to inject the list? That is what the topic. It is similar to setter injection. Okay. Only thing is, in place of property tag, you are giving constructor argument. Internally, you will use which tag? What is the tag we have? List tag. Yes, list is the good. And to pass the values inside the list, what is the child tag you have to pass again? Value. Good. As it is, same. Copy paste. That's all. I can say like copy paste. So let's write down 5 parameterized constructor first. Source. Generate constructor using fields, 5 parameters. Yes. And let me write down setter getter methods. Mojo source generate setter getters for all 5 properties. Generate. Okay. So anyway, I'm not doing any setter injection, so there is no problem with the setter method. I'm going to do only constructor injection. Okay, so that means only constructor will be executed, no setters will be called. I don't need to modify setter injection. Okay, so come back here. So I have 5 parameters, 5 parameterized constructor. Now let's write down a new configuration. Okay, I'm reusing the same class. Tell me now, this constructor is going to be, this bean ID is going to be created? No. You are passing only 4. Here only 3. So let me delete it. We will reuse it. Okay, even setter injection will not be allowed because you are not written any default constructor. Okay, you are not written any default, so setter will not be allowed. So I'm going to do passing the 5th value. What is the 5th value this time? What is the 5th value of the constructor parameter? List type. You need to inject a list of values. So how I'm going to do? See here, 5th constructor argument. 5th constructor argument. What you have to write down inside? List. And inside list, you are going to write down values. So what is the child tag? Value. So something I have like iPhone 14, iPhone 13 like that. Okay. So iPhone 14, iPhone 15. Even I will enter iPhone 14 2 times so that we will see whether it is maintained 2 times or not. I have iPhone 12. So I added 4 values. What is the difference you observed with respect to coding point of view? With respect to coding point of view, setter versus constructor for this list of values, only thing is property tag. If it is a setter injection, property name equal to property name. If it is a constructor injection, you are given constructor argument. But the way you are injecting the list of values is common for the setter as well as constructor. The way you are configuring is common. Yes, good. So let's see now, let's test this bean ID is created or not. Okay, now I'm changing bean ID as a iPhones. What is my bean ID? iPhones. Okay, so whatever the experiments we did, please practice, man. Okay, so please please note down and make a practice. It is almost similar to setter injection. Now I'm going to delete all this nonsense. I'm going to give the bean ID iPhones. Sorry, what is my bean ID? iPhones. Copy paste. What is my bean ID? iPhones. So whenever this line is executed, Spring comes here. Spring will call 5 parameterized constructor. It will inject 1003 iPhone 15 2 lakh false. The fifth parameter, it will inject the list of values. Now, can I print a list of values also? Sys out. Okay, sys out. With this, I am going to stop today's class. We will see the remaining like set and all. You can take it as an assignment. Nothing. You just replace list with the set. That's all. Your assignment is completed. Even map also. Only thing is, so do one thing. Let's take an assignment. Okay, because we did same thing. If you are replacing list with set, your assignment is complete. Even map also, how we did map in our setter injection entry, right? So as it is, you will copy paste inside the constructor argument. If you are defining a constructor argument as a map, then you will copy paste map entry key values and all. That's all. Okay. Anyway, I will cover tomorrow also. Before that, you can practice if you understood the setter injection. So get products, right? Get products is a list of values. Now execute our program. Run as Java. See, iPhone 14, iPhone 15, iPhone 14, iPhone 12. All the values injected or not? So list of values, how you injected, how you configured by using a list tag. It is similar to the setter injection. That's why I told, when I explained setter itself, I told like, now internally, internal behavior. Okay, internally what Spring is doing, the difference between set. Just highlight the points. Setter versus constructor. What is happening? Okay. First, object create. Object. Okay, leave about the spelling mistakes. So with respect to setter, what will happen? Let me bring it to the below line. Object creates and then calls setter methods. Calls setter methods. And which you are using, which property, which tag you are using? Property tag. Okay, I am just summarizing the thing. Okay, property tag you are using. But when it comes to constructor injection, okay, constructor injection, what you are doing? What is doing internally Spring? Here, after object creation, calling the setter methods. To call methods, we need anyway object. Okay, but when it comes to constructor injection, what Spring internally doing? Spring injecting values while object creation. While object creation. So nothing but what internally Spring is doing? Spring executing constructor. Spring executing constructor by passing our all values to constructor parameters, constructor arguments. Constructor arguments. Constructor arguments. So when object creation itself, the dependency injection is happening. But here after object creation, and which tag you are using? Constructor arg tag. All are small case only. Constructor hyphen arg is the tag name you are using. Okay, constructor argument is the tag you are using. So you can take assignment. Okay, whoever is interested, you are just doing only copy paste from setter to constructor. Assignment is try with this set of values, create a constructor which allowing set of values also, and you can try with the map also. Map inside the constructor or whatever. Configuration point of view, whatever you did in the setter and constructor, in the setter injection for the set and map, you will do same thing in the constructor injection also. If you keep your mouse here, so see here what it is allowing to child tags list we used it. Map we already used in the constructor injection. sorry, setter injection level. So same thing. See, they are giving same child tag here also. See, set also same thing here. If you observe here, ref, even tomorrow we are going to discuss about the how we are injecting other class objects. Okay, so leave it. So until this, at least practice. Okay, so how the dependency injection is happening. I'm giving more practical knowledge than the theoretical knowledge. Even I covered a lot of interview questions with respect to interview also. Okay, please understand. One more time, I'm requesting you. Okay, so any doubts before closing this session? We are done with this session. If anyone wants to close, you can close. If you have any doubts, let me know. And everyone, yeah, assignment, that's what. You can try with the set and map. In the, you can define set variable, map variable inside the constructor parameter and try to configure inside the beans.xml. Okay, or I can take it quickly in tomorrow's class. Okay, sir, can I pass reference in constructor argument? Yes. So we are going to you take that example tomorrow. Same like student address and all, we will take same example tomorrow. We are coming like primitives and we are done with the primitives and string, and we are done with the collection also in with respect to constructor injection. Okay, maybe pending is set and map. We will take that tomorrow. And then the fourth type is user defined object or predefined object, whatever it is, predefined class object or user defined class object. How we are injecting the other object, that we will see in tomorrow's class. So he is asking, Seaman, the jar files are already available in the Google Drive. Okay, Mr. Unknown. Okay. So the jar files are already available in the Google Drive. If you have the drive link, it's already available. I uploaded the entire Spring framework. Okay, as a zip file. You will get all the jar files from there. Okay, just check the Google Drive before asking. Okay, drive link. I'm sending you one more time. Okay, the drive link is permanent link. It's not changing like day by day. So whoever doesn't have really, ask me. Whoever is already having the same link. Okay. Good. Which one first execute? Which one execute? That is a different question. We will see that later. It will come back. It will come bean by bean. Okay. So it's, we cannot say like which one will be executed first. So please send the drive link. Okay, I sent you the drive link. Any doubts with one bean ID, only one time object created, even called multiple times in the same package or other? I didn't get your question, Siddharth. One bean ID, only one time object created, even called multiple times in the same package or other? No, you whenever you are giving different bean IDs, different objects will be created in the beans.xml. I will come back which will be better injection. So we will use both in the real-time projects. What and all we will see in the tomorrow's class after completing constructor injection. But which is a better injection? How we need to choose whether it is a setter or constructor. I will tell you in tomorrow's class. Okay. Can we learn Spring Boot in online after the completion of Spring? Yes, Veera Brahmam. Yes, you can learn online also after completing this Spring. Okay, it's simple. Learning Spring Boot is very simple. Or if you know this Spring very well. Thank you, Banu. You guys take all the amount. How to get interview call for Java developers? That I am not sure. You just need to try. At the interview time, they will ask same questions. Yes, same type of questions. They will not ask you what is a constructor injection. Everyone will answer. Okay, but they will ask you like how internally happening, what is internally happening. If I given default constructor, if I given parameterized constructor, what will happen? So that is what they will go little bit in depth. Okay, whatever we did in the experiment, same point of view they will ask. Okay, sir, I want Google Drive link. I shared it. Sir, what will happen if you not use setter methods in constructor injection? What is this question? Yeah, if you don't have any setter, if you are not defined setter methods, you can do the constructor injection. Only thing is, if you want to change the value from 1001 to or 2 lakhs to something like 1,50,000, then what is the method you will have? You don't have any method, right? Then you will not have setter method. Constructor injection will happen without setter method writing. Okay, you don't write the setter method, constructor injection will happen. But after that, once we got the object, for example, it is printing 2 lakh. but I want to change it as a 1,50,000 after receiving the P1 option. If you don't have a setter method, then how can you set the value, right? So that's the purpose we will write down the setter methods. Okay, how have you been? Sir, you started reading my message. Why did you start? What is that message? I see only take messages. Okay, what is a? If you have anything related to the money and all, just contact with the admin team. Okay, just I'm not responsible for the admin team and I'm not responsible for the video access and all. Ask me only subject related doubts. Okay, I'm requesting you one more time. Maybe you may have different people are having different problems. Okay, demo recordings are not working. Okay, I have 8 recordings. Even I played afternoon also. Okay, Monica. So I'm giving last 8 classes. Probably it is missing yesterday's class. Okay, the recordings are working fine. Even I played afternoon also. Okay, it's not like only one person they are configured, not like that. It is access for everyone. Maintaining running notes. See, I'm keep on. Whenever I'm typing, you can take care of running notes, right? While I'm typing, you can take running notes. Anyway, I'm giving this material also, everything. So whenever I'm explaining, you can take key points because I'm giving the running notes. I'm giving the actual material also. Just make down the key notes. You are in the position of learning the framework. You are not in the position of, because if I given time to you, I need to compromise with respect to subject, or I need to compromise with respect to internal detail. Okay, so just try to make sure adjusting, taking the running notes, because I told you in the initial dates itself, I will give you more practical knowledge. Okay, I will give you more understanding what is happening internally and all. Okay, I already told you the same way I'm doing. Otherwise, I can skip all these questions. Okay, whenever I just talking about the constructor injection, simply I can write down a simple constructor. I will configure and I will select this is what happened. I don't need to take all these questions. Okay, why I am taking notes you may get from anywhere else. If you are searching in the Google, please, I want Google, Spring Core notes. You will get beautiful notes, beautiful points. But on the Google level, no one will explain you what is happening internally and all. Okay, how these things will happen practically and all. Nowhere you will get it. So I would like to give you more practical knowledge to the students than the theoretical knowledge. Okay, so little bit you need to adjust with the running notes. Okay, so I know that concept, but I don't want to compromise giving only theory knowledge. I would like to provide always practical point of view, internally, everything. Okay, so let's connect in tomorrow. Okay, if you have anything, we will see in tomorrow's class. Thank you. If you are added the jar files in the Eclipse for the build path, you will get automatically suggestions. Okay, you just need to press Control space. Okay, so if you need to type 1 or 2 characters, then you need to press Control space. You will get automatic. Okay, there is no other any setting. You need to add the jar files to the build path. Without adding the jar files to the build path, you cannot see any suggestions from the Spring Framework. Okay. Yeah, I am uploading programs also in the Google Drive. Just check. I'm uploading every day with the date as a zip file. Okay, inside that you will have all the examples, whatever we written. Adi Vamshi, single question. Please consider my questions as a valid one. Okay. Yes, Adi Vamshi. So there are hundreds of people available. Okay, sometimes it may be skipped. Not skipped actually. It may be not visible to my eyes. But if something comes to like my eyes, I will take. Okay. No, don't worry. You can ask me questions. No problem. Okay, I will take. Here, I am here to provide you knowledge. Okay, not for skipping. Okay, Monica, you can send me a screenshot. Try to. I don't know why it's not working. I think only you reported the issue with respect to demos. No one reported as of now from last 1 week or 9-10 days. Okay, so just try to access one more time. Which one is more user? I will come back that part tomorrow, which is more better option, whether setter or getter. Okay, I will discuss that tomorrow. So that's all. Let's connect on tomorrow. We will see if you have anything. Thank you. Thanks. Good night, everyone.